Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Mental Health Forum. And every week we come with a wonderful topic. And of course, today we have another exciting episode with a brand new topic as well. And today we have a wonderful guest. He is on our show before as well. So before we talk about our guest and our topic, let's welcome my co-host first. She is Executive Director of CCHR. So let's welcome Kim. Hi, Kim.
Hi, Sana. How are you?
I'm fine. Yourself?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Been very, very super busy, but we can talk about that later. So,
Yeah.
there's a lot happening at the moment, and I just want to give our intro for the show of what our purpose is for doing this. And of course, our purpose is to inform people. What we want to do is just to give you informed choice on different issues to do with health and mental health, so you can make up your own mind. Because if you've got the data, you've got the facts, you can decide then, oh, what will I do to handle a particular situation? And so this is what we do. We want to educate you on various issues to do with mental health and psychiatric human rights abuse, to enable you to make informed choices. So, Sana, it's really exciting. I'm really excited that the guest that we have on tonight, I think it's going to be a great show.
Yeah, and I think we are really excited because last time when our guest is on our show, he discussed a few very important things. And now even our today's topic is also very, very important to discuss because it's about our children. And the topic is keeping our kids happy and healthy. And Kim, I must say that this topic is really good because, of course, it's not about your kids. I think it's about your family as well. If your kids are happy, this means your family is happy and healthy. And of course, being parents, you always want that, you do something which makes your kids or children more healthy and more active as well. So that's why I think that today, this topic is really good to discuss. And plus, I think it is going to be a very excited show as well. So before we discuss more on this important issue, I think let's welcome our today's guest. He is Mark Donadu. We would like to welcome back Mark, who is the president of Vegetarian Victoria. Vegan Festival is the he always organize vegan festivals. Mark is a founder and director for World Vegan Day Melbourne, which is one of the most or the biggest vegan festival in the world. He has spoken at many major events around the world. Mark has also been recently interviewed on Channel 9 for his comments on health, as well as he do so many other popular shows or radio shows as well. He appeared on different radio stations as well. So before we talk more about Mark and his dedication towards healthy fitness or all those things, so let's welcome our guest, Mark.
Well, thank you
Hi,
for
Mark.
having me on. Hi.
Hi, Mark.
Hello.
Mark, I must say there is so much to say about you. That's why even I don't know what to say and what not to say. But anyhow, before we talk about our today's topic, how to keep our kids healthy, I just want if you can introduce yourself first. And plus, I would really want to know when we said vegan festival, and as mentioned in your intro as well, that it is one of the biggest in the whole world. So what it is?
Yeah. Well, our event that we run is called World Vegan Day, and it is usually at the Melbourne Showgrounds in most years, except for 2020 because of the COVID restrictions. So we weren't able to have our event this year. But in other years, we had up to 25,000 people turning up to our event. And it was basically an opportunity for people to have a lot of talks that are on. There was music, there was food of all different kinds, people cooking with all different recipes, and just bringing together people to show that you can actually eat a healthy diet and have everything that you need with plant-based foods. And I'm also president of VegVic as well, which is an organisation that shares information with the public. And you're asked, what has kind of inspired me to get on this path. Well, one of the main inspirations for me really has been my own health. I had a lot of health challenges when I was young, and I was in the children's hospital. I had scoliosis later as a child, and I had no idea that the food I was eating was contributing dramatically to the health that I had. And so that led me on this path to learn more about the relationship between food and health. And I've been studying this for well over 20 years now.
Fantastic.
That's great, Mark. And that's what, I want to add one more thing, Kim. When you said vegan festivals and to keep yourself healthy by adopting the vegetarian food and all that, there are so many people like me. We are meat lovers. So when we look at the options of vegetarians and all that, today I learned how to motivate others as well to stop eating meat and go towards the the vegetarian food, and what makes it more interesting so that you can skip the meat and all that. So you want to add on anything? Then we come to our topic.
Yeah. Look, it's never been easier to have vegan options for things. You can find, everything that you enjoy normally and have a vegan version of it. You can have even vegan ice cream. You can have mock meats that can substitute for meat, vegan dairy, vegan cheese, all these things. And that could be one way to just move into that type of diet by just substituting the animal foods with the vegan foods. Or a healthier option, again, would be to use, say, beans instead of meat, which are very, very high in protein, very, very filling. And if you do it over a period of time where you're gradually introducing these changes, your gut bacteria can have a chance to adapt. Because if you go straight from eating meat to, say, vegan in one day, you'll find that your gut bacteria haven't adapted, and you may feel hungry, you may feel nauseous, you may be detoxing too rapidly. But if you do it over a gradual period of time, you'll then start finding it easier to replace the meat and dairy, and find it very easy to integrate that into your diet.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. Kim, I'm not sure about you. You are a vegan lover or a meat lover?
Yeah.
So for me, it's a long story. When I first got married and left home, I just decided that we were going to become vegetarians, just like that. And I did exactly what you shouldn't do, which is Mark just said, you're supposed to do it gradually. I didn't do that. And the only expert at the time was a lady called Adele Davies, who still, I guess, is an expert in the field. But she had a lot of bean recipes. And so I started cooking bean recipes, and it was absolutely horrendous. Anyway, I'm actually in the process of writing a book, guys. And Mark, I'd love you to have a look at it. It's actually called I Hate Veggies, because as a kid, I was one of those children who absolutely hated vegetables. And so it was quite amusing that in my 20s I decided to become a vegetarian. But unfortunately, it didn't last very long. So I can be educated, Mark. You need to inform me.
So, Mark, today you have so many challenges because we got so many questions to ask, and now I come back to our topic, and it's keeping our kids healthy. And of course, you are going to share that how we are going, to look after the diet for our children to keep them healthy and for their well-being, and how this is going to affect their mood swings, their behavior, and affect their school life, and plus their mental health as well, because of course we are going to relate it with the mental stability and all that as well.
Yeah. Look, that's an excellent question. You know that there is a huge relationship between the food that we eat and children eat, and their mood and how they're feeling, and their outlook to life. In fact, what they've looked at is studies from, say, the British Medical Journal that actually showed that you can have an improvement of somewhere between 1.3 and 1.4 in terms of like a 30% increase to 40% increase when you start having fruits and vegetables in your diet, in terms of improving your mental health, which has been measured by different strategies to see people's happiness, people's outlook on life, and so forth. In fact, there was a study that was actually called Happiness and Health Behavior in Iranian Girls, and this was from the Journal of Adolescence. And what they found there was that there was a strong positive correlation between fruit and vegetable consumption and happiness. And this was also backed up by another study, which was from Psychomatic Medicine in 2013, where they actually showed that carotenoids that you find not only in carrots, but in broccoli, sweet potatoes, things like that, have increased optimism. And that was quite a landmark study that showed that. Now, when they've looked at big numbers of people, like 80,000 British people that were looked at, and they found a dose-response relationship was found between the servings of fruit and vegetables and satisfaction and happiness. And those that consumed, I think it was about 7 to 8 portions of fruit and veg per day, reported the highest life satisfaction and happiness. And that was also taking into account the economic status of the family, because if you've got a family that is poor, that can influence things. But even taking that out and other even genetic issues, they found that the fruit and vegetable intake was one of the biggest correlators of happiness. And there was another study from the British Journal of Health Psychology, and it was titled On Carrots and Curiosity, Eating Fruit and Vegetables is Associated with a Greater Flourishing in Daily Life. And what they found was dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter that underlies motivation and promotes engagement, was in greater amounts when you had a lot of plant-based foods, because vitamin C is an important cofactor in the production of dopamine. And there was another study many years ago where looked at melatonin, which is high in tomatoes and strawberries, and those that were consuming the most of those tended to get better happiness outcomes, and children especially, and even more so when they were eating organic ones, because strawberries are the most sprayed of all fruits and vegetables. And when you have things like Roundup, which has been patented as an antibiotic and has been shown to hurt our gut bacteria, or kill our gut bacteria, that can negatively impact our mood. And in fact, I think I mentioned on the previous show that they've done studies where you have one dose of antibiotics and that can increase depression by about 14%. And if you have 2 courses of antibiotics within a year period, then it can increase depression by 51%. And because these pesticides work in a similar way to antibiotics in terms of killing our gut bacteria, you tend to find that those on organic diets tend to do a lot better. Now, what's also interesting, when we're talking about what can affect children's mood, is that we have serotonin receptors in our gut. And in fact, 90% of our total serotonin receptors are in our gut, in intestines. And 90% of the body's serotonin is produced in the gut as well. So if you're having things like antidepressants, for example, which have been shown to destroy a lot of that healthy gut bacteria, well, then that actually makes that problem worse. And given that your serotonin is required for proper mental health and for happiness, that is a real concern. And they've also found that with the studies looking at the people that are eating the most fruits and vegetables, that they had lower inflammation in total, and that inflammation was shown to actually link to happiness. And the more inflammation, the more depression and the lack of happiness, and the lower the inflammation, the greater the happiness and the greater the protection against depression. And we know that there are many plant-based foods that are incredibly anti-inflammatory, and most of them are, and especially things like grapes and berries. Whereas a lot of the animal foods have been shown to be very inflammatory. And in fact, there's been lots of studies that actually show that first of all, that yes, inflammation is associated with high depression, but that the fats in animal foods, when you have a lot of cholesterol and it becomes oxidized, that creates antibodies, and when those antibodies try to attack, they tend to create a lot of inflammation in that localized area. And wherever we see inflammation, we see increases in depression. And for example, they've done studies where they've looked at interleukin-6, tumor necrosis factor alpha, and correlated that, which are inflammatory markers, and correlated that with depressed mood and social disconnection. They found there is a direct correlation between them. And they've even looked at things like when people are rewarded, for example, if they're solving a crossword puzzle or a maths puzzle, they normally get a whole lot of endorphins being released, and they can actually measure on the brain these positive responses. But when people are having endotoxins, which are toxins that are found in a lot of animal foods, but also found in a lot of processed foods, then what happens is, instead of being rewarded or feeling that happiness, you tend to find the opposite, that there seems to be a reduction in the production of endorphins, and as a result, people feel more upset or more depressed, after solving these problems. And there have been so many other studies, even ones from the Journal of Health Psychology, that actually said that not only does eating more fruit and vegetables have a greater association with well-being, it also has an increase in a thing called eudaimonic well-being, which is a state of flourishing characterized by feelings of engagement, meaning, and purpose in life. And so they've actually looked beyond just being okay, and as opposed to being depressed. Here it's like people that are at the happiest that you can be, and they found there's a massive correlation between fruit and vegetable consumption there. And I think it was 7 to 8 servings of fruit and vegetables a day have a really positive effect. And it was quite noticeable that those that didn't eat that healthy diet had a very lower ranking in that area. And just finally, there was one other study that was actually from the British Journal of Health Psychology that was titled "Many Apples a Day Keep the Blues Away," and daily experiences of negative and positive effects on food consumption in young adults. And there, the correlation was massive between the fruit and vegetable consumption and the happiness that they actually experienced. And they even went further and said that the people were feeling, and the children were feeling calmer, happier, more energetic than they normally do. And they also felt more positive the next day. And so it wasn't that they were positive, that's why they were eating healthy, because they actually monitored that over like a food log. But they found that when they ate healthy, they were going to be happier the next day, as opposed to the other way around. So it proved that it definitely had a massive effect. And with children, there was a study done in 1980, going back then, by the Journal of the American Dietetic Association, that also showed that the children who ate plant-based were higher in IQ scores compared to other children, also mainly because of the nutrients going to the brain and the lack of impediment of oxygen going to the brain because of inflammation. Because when you have inflammation, it narrows your blood vessels that lead to the brain. And also when you have a lot of cholesterol buildup, that also restricts blood flow as well. And so it had all of these major benefits for kids.
Wow, that's incredible. It's like,
That's
when I was a kid, we used to, we were always told an apple a day keeps the doctor away.
Yeah, that is what exactly when you said so many apples.
So it's like there's scientific proof behind that one, it sort of, makes you happier because you're eating more fruit. No, that's really great, Mark. Thanks for that explanation. But, I wanted to ask sort of what we're interested in with CCHR and our issues. And I want everyone to know that recently in Australia there was a productivity commission into mental health, and the findings, the final papers were released yesterday on that, and it's a 2,000-page report, and it's been a big concern to us. We've actually, I'm just going to hold this up and people will be able to see it. There we go. So it's 1.2 million 0 to 3-year-olds are at risk of being put on psychiatric drugs. And we've been putting out this document for months and months now, and in particular educating people about this, because we're very concerned. Because our concern was that if the Productivity Commission decides to put a recommendation in to screen every 0 to 3-year-old in Australia, that's 1.25 million kids for mental illness, and it's called emerging mental illness. That means they could become, mentally ill down in the future. There's a possibility of it, right? So Mark, I just wanted to ask you, did you know that report had been released? And also, the Prime Minister announced yesterday that 51 million is going towards this program, this program, right? And
Well,
it's called promotion. Sorry, I'll just finish a prevention and early intervention program, and it's got its basis in early psychosis. So I wanted to ask you is what do you think that the outcome of this screening program is going to be, and how do you think that it's going to affect the outcome with children? That if more children are screened, right, and they're being screened for, well, emotional and social well-being, they're calling it now, instead of mental illness. How do you think that's going to affect our children?
well, I think it's going to affect them in a very negative way. Now, I've actually read that report that you've mentioned, and what's interesting is that the language that the Australian government is using is no longer mental health language, but is being termed things like emotional and social well-being. These very vague general terms, which could apply to almost anybody. And that's really concerning because the consequences of being diagnosed with a condition which they deem to be unhealthy, the consequence of that can be really, really severe, because when you have a look at the services that these children could receive, it inevitably leads into children then being put on psychiatric drugs, and the consequences of those are really, really concerning, because they have been shown, as we talked about last time you had me on the show, that they actually increase suicide risk and worsen the happiness of the child. As we saw from the study I just showed a few minutes ago, they actually lower serotonin production, very thing that's going to make you feel better. So when you have such arbitrary kind of screenings like that, with very, very vague terms, it can be a real problem. There are no tests to confirm any psychiatric diagnosis like X-rays or blood tests, urine tests, any of that, and yet a child can be labelled as being mentally ill, and worst of all, recommended for a prescription for psychiatric drugs. And the thing that really worries me is that we're talking even in the age group of 0 to 3. I mean, this is where children can barely even talk, or in some cases can't talk at that age, at the young ages. And yet, if they're experiencing things like irregular feeding or trouble sleeping, or what child doesn't at some stage, or having temper tantrums, or losing their toys or whatever, and then they say, oh, well, you've got a mental illness. I mean, that's a real concern. And if you've got nurses, in the community making these kind of assessments, which is a field that is not a specialist of their skills, then it's a real recipe for disaster. I don't think that there can be any positives that can be taken out of that at all.
Sana, I can't hear you.
Nana, that is what, whatever you mentioned here, Mark, that is what it raised so many questions. Being a mother, as you mentioned, the main question is the age group, which is from 0 to 3. And plus, if a kid, they never have that mood swings and they never show tantrums, how can we consider that they are kids? That is the beauty of your childhood, that you don't know when to show what kind of moods and all that. So that is a big question. And then again, as we are discussing today, keeping our child healthy, and then how to look after their well-being, do you think it is really important to screen kids from this age group 0 to 3, and then does this affect or to the health of our child? So do you think there is any relation between these two things, screening and then the healthy kids?
Yeah, look, I think what happens is that the more you screen, the more the likelihood that you're going to find someone that is going to be tested as being as having a mental illness, because the questions that they're asking and the things that they're looking for, like tantrums, or just kids not being hungry or not feeding, things like that. And if they get interpreted as a mental illness, they can really label the child for life and set them up on the course of taking some of these drugs, which are very, very harmful. And I think it's a very, very bad path to go down. And yeah, there is a big relationship between the number of tests and the number of positives, as we've seen. Like even with the COVID situation, the more tests, the more positives you're going to get. It's the same with anything. The more tests you do, the more positive results you're going to get. And it wouldn't be so bad if you had a very reliable test that was actually giving you meaningful results. But here, it's not meaningful, and the terms are so vague that they could change from day to day, depending on how the nurse or whoever is making the assessment, whatever mood they're in, can actually influence, the label that they give a child, and you can be labeled for life, that way, once they get on that path of these harmful drugs. So it's very, very concerning indeed.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's like, Mark, because of what we've been talking about with correct health and educating people on these health issues, like, if you take a child and they're going to be screened and they've just had a really bad meal, or they're a bit they haven't, I don't know, upset tummy or something like that, and they're getting screened on these sorts of issues, then obviously it's going to affect their moods. So I wanted to ask you, and you don't have to. I mean, I only want your opinion on this, right? But in your opinion, who do you believe is pushing these screening programs? And the increase of the kids being put on drugs?
Yeah, look, I think that you always have to ask the question, who benefits? Who benefits from all these kids being put on drugs? Who benefits from all of these screenings, which is going to result in a lot of these tests that are going to show that the kids have got mental illness and that need to be treated with psychiatric drugs? Well, the answer is the pharmaceutical companies. They're the ones that benefit. There's no doubt about that. And there is a massive conflict of interest here, and with the mental health groups and with the pharmaceutical companies that benefit, you have to really question, the ethics of this. It's something that really needs to be looked at.
Absolutely, and also the other point is that the psychiatrists make the disorders, and the drugs, the pharmaceuticals make the drugs. So it's we consider it to be like an unholy alliance between the two. If anyone wants a copy of our documentaries that go very much into that, we're really welcome to give them to our viewers, Sana. So Sana, you've got a question. I mean, we're getting close to the end of the show, so yeah.
Yeah, even though I still want so many questions, because as you mentioned that in this report, it is the age group is still a question, 0 to 3. And then of course, Mark, even in your previous show, you mentioned, and even today, you also clearly mentioned that through healthy diet and exercise, one can control their mental illness, and then they can be a physically or mentally fit person. So why you think that, rather than as me and Kim, since last a few months, we are trying to educate people, but still, rather than educating people on how to keep themselves healthy, people are pushing towards towards the screening and testing and all that. So what you suggest, that how can we educate people towards the healthy living, and then rather than on drugs and all that? What are your
Well, for one thing, when you have such a vested interest like the pharmaceutical industries have in getting kids on these drugs, so they can make huge profits, you have a real problem, and that's why they're steered in that direction rather than in that of healthy eating or exercise. There's no doubt that by making kids eat healthy and exercising, they're going to get far, far greater outcomes. But there's no money in that. There's no money. The fruit and vegetable industries do not make a lot of money. Just to put this into some context, that there was a film a number of years ago called Super Size Me, and one of the things that they actually showed there was the amount of spending that the Fruit and Vegetable Association did that in their biggest campaign ever, the famous 5 fruit and veg a day campaign. They spent something like $2 million worldwide. In the same year, McDonald's spent $1.2 billion. And that's not including KFC and Burger King and the rest of them. And that is just a drop in the ocean compared to how much the pharmaceutical industry spend in advertising. So you can see, if you follow the money trail, you can see why that telling people to eat healthy, eating fruits and vegetables and exercising, why that's not given a lot of coverage. And yet, screening and putting kids on drugs is given a lot of attention.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the Prime Minister actually pointed out that by 2021, they're looking at 5.7 billion. I'm going to say that again. $5.7 billion has been allocated to mental health. And it sort of seems to me, after what you've been saying and, what we've been hearing for months and months and months, if people can be healthier by tried and true methods and finding out underlying conditions, then wouldn't it be better for our government to be actually putting money towards educating people on these alternative issues? And so, allowing, like, for example, maybe subsidising, if they can't afford it, subsidising our food industry so that we can produce healthy, cheap, organic food, without the pesticides and the dangers, and then we can feed our kids. Or even in schools, I know in certain schools they've had healthy lunch programs where food's been provided to the kids in the poor areas that don't necessarily get the good nutrition. So it's sort of like, if you're looking at, $5.7 billion, that's a damn lot of money. If we had 0.7 of that, Mark, we could do a huge big education campaign for all the kids in Australia and all the parents in Australia, and tell them healthy eating, exercise, informed choice, find out all the facts, get all the data, and if you do have a problem, get a full medical check and find out what that underlying, medical condition is, and get that handled. So maybe what people can do, guys, is actually write to their members of parliament and actually say, go listen to Mark, listen to what Mark's saying, and Kim and Sana, and all these other health experts that we've had on the show that are promoting these. Yeah.
Or maybe we can start a campaign as well, that if you want to make informed choices, look towards Mark, what he's saying about healthy choices and all that.
Okay, you're a leader, Mark.
Yeah, look, and some of that 5.7 billion that you mentioned would be better if they spent that in educating children on healthy eating. I couldn't agree more. And it's so distressing when you see that instead a lot of it has been squandered on all these useless screenings and tests, which can only come out with a result of putting kids on more drugs and going down that very path. So with that kind of money, you could do some amazing things in terms of education. And I really hope that that people do actually take action, like you're suggesting, to write to your politicians and get them to be aware of this issue. And the more of them that are, they might take some notice. And even though there's a lot of money from the pharmaceutical industries, I think they're the biggest funders of both sides of politics here in Australia and certainly in the United States. But in spite of that, there are politicians that want to do the right thing and speak out. And let's hope that they do that and put pressure on all of these different bodies and make them accountable. So, well, hang on a minute, why are you doing all these things? That's just a real waste of money and providing really bad outcomes. So, I think we need to be active and put as much pressure on as we can.
Absolutely. And I just want to show people again, like this, and I just want to say, Sana, this is this early promotion program. It's worldwide, so it doesn't matter where you are in the world. This sort of thing. It's not this one specifically, but this will be affecting you. So I'll put this on the link for the show, so people can go to our website. They can download this, or they can email me, and I can send them copies. We can even get copies printed for them, and they can get those out, because this is possibly going through to Parliament within the next month or so to be approved, because and it will, even though it's a federal issue, each state and territory will be adopting their own part of the program, and this is definitely going to be happening in Victoria. There's no doubt about it, unless we do something about it to stop it. So, yeah. So thanks, Mark. Really, you've been fantastic coming onto the show, and
Thank you.
you've always such a font of amazing information. I feel blessed that I can actually get this data and get an understanding and get more informed about my own personal
Yeah.
health choices. Plus, I know we can inform others.
Yeah. And even like today, I must say, Mark, whatever the information you provided, it is going to help so many parents as well. Because whenever we, like, as a mother, whenever we prepare the lunch box, now it comes to my mind as well that, okay, Mark said, make healthy choices or put more veggies and more, fruits and all that. So I
Mm,
think this can affect the child as well, and it is for their well being. And as I mentioned in the program before, that it's not about one child or two or three children, it is about the whole family, because the whole family revolves around your kids. If your kid is happy, you are happy. And that is what we need. So, once again, Mark, as Kim mentioned, every time, you got so much information to share. Thanks a lot. And you contribute a lot. I think it is going to help not only just us, it is going to contribute, like, towards others as well in a better way, so that they can keep themselves healthy and with better nutrition and exercise and all that. So last few words, Mark, if you want to say. I know we are running out of time, but last few words if you want to add on anything.
I would just encourage people to take a real interest in their own health rather than putting your faith in the doctors or the governments and these experts. You've got to take your own responsibility for health, because the decisions being made by these people are not necessarily those in your interest. It seems to be in the interest of these big companies. So that's what I would encourage people to do. And then get active and try to encourage others also to take a passion in this, and we can all help together to make a real positive change.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Mark.
yeah.
I think it's such a beautiful message. So before we wrap up, Kim, you want to add on anything? Just a quick message, whatever you say every time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this time, because we have been talking about psychiatric drugs, we need to give you the warning that if you are on any psychiatric drugs, it is very, very important that you don't just stop cold turkey, and that you don't stop without the assistance of a competent medical doctor. And this is due to what's called the withdrawal symptom, which is a new, not before experienced symptom or a worsening of existing symptoms. So if you just stop taking a drug, it can be more dangerous than if you continue it. So you need to actually, if you are on psychiatric drugs and you do want to get off, talk to your doctor, and there are ways to do it. And then you can, as Mark has shown us tonight, you can change your lifestyle and your diet and your nutrition so that you are a well and healthy person. So thanks, Sana. Thanks for giving us the
Thanks a lot,
opportunity
Kim. I think
to
it's such a
discuss
wonderful
these
message. And that is what we are trying to say, that look, make informed choices and just
Yes,
look after yourself. There are thousand options there. It's just how you look towards things. And today, Mark gave us an idea how to keep yourself healthy and how to look after your kids in a better way so that they stay healthy. So this is what we are trying to do. So just look after yourself, your family, stay happy like me and Kim, and keep watching and keep supporting A1 TV. Till then, take care. Bye.
bye.